Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm setting up Whonix on Proxmox using PfSense. Whonix is a security-focused operating system that uses a unique virtualization technique to isolate your online activities from the rest of your system. And that's why this makes it a great system for anyone who wants to protect their privacy and anonymity online. I'm using PfSense to manage my local networks. We'll be setting up two networks, one for Whonix Workstation and Whonix Gateway to communicate, and the other one will be used to connect you to the internet using Tor. Keep watching. Okay, we are back on the computer screen. So let's first have a look at their website. So if you go to whonix.org, and this is their web page, Superior Internet Privacy with Whonix. Sounds good. There is a small video that you can watch and it will introduce you what Whonix is. Scroll down. It is available for these platforms. I have tried this previously using Cubes, but you can download it for Mac OS, Windows, Linux, KVM, and so on. And because we are setting it up on Proxmox, we'll be using KVM. Gives you a good comparison between Whonix and the traditional VPNs. And if you bring your mouse over this icon, it gives you more information. No logging, leak shield, server relays on average, virus malware protection, and for obviously VPNs you pay about $5 $20 a month, but Whonix is obviously free. Scrolling down, you can see Edward Snowden's quotation there as well. I use Cubes and the Whonix Gateway literally every day. Tech Republic, they all have written about it. Watertight privacy architecture. So it shows you if you install Whonix on your computer and you are browsing the internet, you are not anonymous. But if within your computer you install Whonix and whenever you browse the internet or send traffic on the internet, it will be anonymized using Tor network. Elite Spy Defense if you want to hide your activity. Scrolling down, these are the applications that they've reviewed and pre-configured for the Whonix. So this project sounds really promising and I wanted to test and see if we could install it on Proxmox. So if you click on downloads and we are installing it on Proxmox, you just select the option KVM. And if you just click one of these, and before you install, you can install it on Debian, Ubuntu, Arch Linux, Fedora, and others. But if you scroll down a little more, you can download their QCOW 2 version. So right click, copy link, and if we go to the terminal, I've already logged into my Proxmox server. Let's just create a directory, Whonix. Let's get into it and do a wget, and it will download the latest version in the .xz format. So let's just download that. While this is downloading, let's review the network we are trying to build. So as my previous videos, this is the overall network we're trying to build, and we are deploying Whonix Gateway and Whonix Workstation today. And for this, we need to understand how it works. So Whonix Gateway is the main VM that you'll be using as a daily driver. So any traffic that goes out on the internet will go to the Whonix Gateway, which is of two interfaces. One is on the same network as Whonix Workstation, so that it can communicate only to the Whonix Workstation, and the other NIC is to route your traffic to the internet. We are setting it up using PfSense, so we need to make sure that we have two separate VLANs, and one VLAN, I'm calling it VLAN 1052 purely because Whonix Gateway and Whonix Workstation come with pre-configured IP addresses. So for Whonix Workstation is pre-configured IP addresses 10.152.152.11 in a /18 subnet, and then Whonix Gateway is .10 in the same network. Once you create this VLAN, you don't need to assign any VLAN IP interface. If both are in the same network, they should be able to see each other. On the other side, we're going to create another separate VLAN called VLAN 1002 purely because it's 1002, and again comes with pre-configured 10.0.2.15 is the IP address that it uses to get out onto the internet, and all this traffic is routed through Tor, so it does not use your local DNS as well for DNS resolution as well. So if you have any Pi-hole setup, it's not gonna work. So let's go ahead and set up all our VLANs on PfSense. So I've already logged into my PfSense and click on interfaces, assignments, VLANs, add, and make sure this is your LAN that is selected, and that was 1002 VLAN 1002 description, and that is just for the darknet or Tor traffic. So click save. So we have our darknet VLAN created. Let's create Whonix workstations, and that was 1052. So that is 1052. Save. So remember, for Whonix workstations, we are not going to assign any VLAN IP addresses. We in fact don't need to do anything else. So if we click on interfaces, assignments, let's just add that first. So Whonix workstations add. So that's been added. OPT 9, click that. We are going to enable it, and I'm going to call it Whonix workstations. We are not configuring any IP addresses on this interface. So let's just save it, apply changes. And now if we go back to interfaces, assignments again, let's just add our darknet VLAN, click OPT 10, enable it, call it darknet. We are going to assign a static IP address. So how do we know which IP address to assign? So we'll hold on to it. Once we've downloaded our image, we'll get some configuration files and we can decipher which IP address we have to assign here. So let's go back to the downloads, and that's been completed. So here it is. And another thing is, it says do not use unxz, just use the normal tar. So we're just going to copy this. We'll untar these files, wait for it to finish. That's done. And first let's have a look at our external gateway. So let's Whonix external network, and there it is. Bridge name they've already given, and this is /24 network mask, and this is the IP address of the external gateway 10.0.2.2, and this is what we will assign to our network. So let's go there, 10.0.2.2.2, and that is /24. Save, apply changes. So that is sorted. So if we go to rules, now you can see here Whonix workstations. I did not set up any rules. Again, it is not using firewall to route any of the traffic. It is going through the gateway. So I'm not going to set up any rules here. If we go to darknet, and this is where we need to set up rules for the internet facing NIC of the gateway. So the first thing I usually do is, if I click on evil, we are going to copy the darknet, and we're going to allow all traffic everywhere. So apply this, and then we are going to stop this firewall ports as well, and darknet, block firewall web and SSH interfaces, and I am also going to block and all my private networks as well. So that will be my darknet. So any host on my darknet interface should not be able to reach any of my private networks. So save that and apply. So for firewalls, we are all okay. We don't need to set up any DHCP server purely because we are not assigning any DHCP service to the gateway either. It comes pre-configured. Now we are ready to set up Whonix. Let's do it. So the first, I'm going to create the Whonix gateway VM. So click create VM. I am going to give it a name. So let's go back to the drawing. So 1051. So 1051 because I want it to appear at the bottom of the list. Let's call it Whonix Gateway. Now gonna start a boot. Click next. We don't need any CD DVD images. Next. Just click QEMU agent. Next. We will be attaching our own disk, so just delete this. Next. I am going to assign 2 cores. Enable NUMA. That's plenty for a gateway because its job is just to route traffic out to the Tor network. Click next. 2 GB RAM is enough. Next. Because system requirements, Whonix gateway for best performance 2 GB. So let's get back there. Select your bridge. So I've got my PfSense LAN for all VMs. And if we go back, interfaces, assignments, VLANs, 1002 is my darknet. That's 1002. Next, we're not going to start because we need to add the other NIC to communicate to the workstation. So click finish. So it will spin up a VM. So that's done. Select that hardware, add network device, select your bridge, and the second one is 1052. So go back there, 1052, click add. And now let's add our disk. So let's log back into Proxmox using terminal. On the terminal, just enter this command qm import disk 1051 because that is your VM ID, qcow image, and where you want to store it. I'm storing it on Supersonic, which is my local enterprise SSD, and just hit enter. And now it has started importing the disk into the VM and successfully imported. Go back there, select your VM hardware, and that's your unused disk. Edit this, assign it as IDE. Select this option if you're using SSDs, and also this one because it's gonna give you better performance. Click add. So that's all done. And now click options, enable this, and take it to number 2 just in case if you want to mount something on CD-ROM, and click OK. And now we are ready to start the VM. So click console, start now, and it is booting from our disk. Okay, so we are at the desktop now. Click understood. It presents you some important information about this OS. It's not your usual blah blah blah, so it's better if you read all this. And once you're happy, click understood, next, understood, next. It is completed. Now we are going to do a system check. Click finish. And which of the following best describe your situation? I'm going to select the first one, but if you live in an environment where you have to use Tor bridges, then you might have to select this option, or if you want to disable Tor, then select this option. So just click connect and it will enable Tor. I'm not selecting any bridges or proxies, so just click next. Sometimes it takes a while at this stage, or this process is really slow, so we'll let it complete, and once it's done I'll get back to you. We're still going. Let's see if there is any firewall rules generation. So there is 2 states active. So let's click that, and 10.0.2.15 is my gateway, and it is already established to these IPs. Let's have a look at what these are. And I just did a who is on one of those, and it's network for Tor exit traffic. It's used for Tor exit. We do not have any logs at all. Some other information. So it is setting it all up, and once it's done, I'll be back. Okay, so that bootstrapping is done. It took a while, so be patient. Let's see how much traffic it has used. So about 700 megs. So it, I think, downloaded 700 meg worth of updates. Click finish. So it's doing an auto system check. That's done, and this dialog box appeared. So it gives you some information. Whonix app repository is enabled. Apt-get reports that packages can be updated, so we can update. So let's do that first. Upgrade dash known root. Enter. And now you can see it is going over Tor and getting all the required packages. So let's just click yes and enter, and let it download in the background. So while it's doing that, let's set up our workstation as well. So click create VM. Workstation will be 1052 and name it Whonix workstation. Next, don't need any media. Next, QEMU agent ticked. Next, don't need this disk. We will be attaching our own. So delete that. Next, I am going to give it 8 cores because this is the workstation. Enable NUMA. Next, I'm going to assign 8 gigs of RAM, 8192. Next, PfSense LAN. And again, if we go to interfaces, assignments, VLANs, our Whonix workstation's VLAN tag ID is 1052. That's 1052. And remember, there is no IP interface on it. So you can go to interface assignments, Whonix workstations, no IPv4, IPv6 IP interfaces on it. So next, don't start it because we have to attach our disk image. So click finish. So it will spin up a workstation now. So that's done, and we will have to go back to Proxmox using terminal and attach our disk image to 1052. And if I do qm import disk workstation qcow2 image and hit enter, successfully imported. Go back, Whonix workstation, hardware, and there it is. Edit, attach it as IDE, discard, SSD, add. So again, this just only needs one NIC because there is the Whonix workstation and it has no way of communicating with any of the other VLANs because VLAN 1052 does not have an IP interface, and the only way it could send traffic is to Whonix Gateway because this also comes with pre-configured hard-coded etc resolve file that points everything to 10.152.152.10, which is the Whonix Gateway. So all traffic is routed through the gateway. Click options, edit, enable it, put it number 2, click OK, and we are ready to boot up. Click start. And it is already loading. So let's wait for it to boot up. Here we are on the desktop. Again, some important information you should read through. And once you've done that, click understood, next, understood, next. And now it will do a system check. So click finish. There are some warnings, some info, and the first thing we're going to be doing is upgrade known root. So let's do that. Open up terminal. Let's pop out so that you could see it a bit better. Terminal. And let's zoom in a couple of times. Upgrade known root. Enter. And now, as you can see, it is able to download from Tor Debian repositories and Kickscure repositories. So we'll wait for it to do a full upgrade. Additional disk will be used. So we're okay with that. And let it download and upgrade. So while this is going, let's check on our gateway machine. So that seems to be done. If I do curl if config me, it gave me an IP address again, and you can see now previously it gave me an IP address of 178.218.144.99 and now 104.244.79.50, because every time I'm doing this curl into ifconfig.me service, it is using a new Tor circuit. Some of the IP addresses are obviously detected and they wouldn't tell you what your IP address is, but some of them go through. And then there is another one, 185, 193, 158, 134, and obviously previous ones are different. It's 104. I tend not to do anything else on the Whonix gateway. I want to highlight one more thing, and that is if you look at your IP address, this one is for your Whonix workstation communication, and this one is for your internet facing IP address. So if we want to ping .11, it wouldn't work because by design workstation does not reply to pings. So as you can see, it can't ping, but there is a communication going on between the two. So I set up a pop OS instance, a VM, and I gave it the IP address in the same range of .20. So let's try and ping that. And you can see I'm getting replies. So that means all the machines on the same subnet should be able to talk to each other. And just to highlight this, there was Whonix workstations. I did not set up any firewall rules. So by default, PfSense drops all the packets. So if you go to interfaces, Whonix workstation, there is also no IPv4, IPv6 configuration. And once the upgrade is done, it's usually a good idea to reboot. Let's reboot the server first, or the gateway first. Change me, and we will also change the password for the default user. So that's loading up. Let's same password, change me, and it will reboot both the gateway and the workstation. Before we wrap up, let's open up the default Tor browser. So if there are any updates, check first on there. So it's downloading the Tor browser update. You should always download. So it's about 114 megs. So let it download. And while it's downloading, on the home page, you can also do your IP check. And it tells you, yes, this browser is configured to use Tor, and that seems to be my IP address. This is not my IP address. The update is finished, so restart to update Tor browser. Supplying the updates. And there you go. So we do an IP check again, and this is a different IP address. It took me a while to figure out the IP addressing schemes that were hard-coded in both workstation and gateway. So instead of changing those, I just built my VLANs around those so that I don't need to change any default IP addressing schemes. If you click on summary, there is no QEMU agent running, so we're just going to install it. You do sudo apt install QEMU guest agent, and then we're going to do the same on the workstation. Sudo apt install QEMU guest agent. So that's installed, and let's change the password for user. Current password, it was change me. Put in a new password that you want to set, and that's updated successfully. and let's do a reboot for the QEMU agent to be loaded. And same thing there, I've already installed it. Let's do change password as well. So just password, current password was change me, and then the new password, whatever you like to set up, and then do a sudo reboot. It's loading up, and there it is. QEMU agent is working fine. Same for Whonix gateway. Hopefully there it is. It has two IPs. That's for the internet facing, and this is for any of the Whonix workstations. Lastly, I would like to highlight one more thing, that you cannot access this network outside this broadcast domain. What it means is, if you are sitting in one of your other networks like LAN, that is an isolated network, so you can't get into the network, and therefore you will have to use the console. That's the whole point, that no other outside interference is allowed on the workstation. This is by design. So lastly, I wanted to show you, what if you don't have PfSense, you just have your Proxmox node. So what you can do is, you click on the node and you go to network and you create a Linux bridge. It will be an empty bridge. Again, it's not VLAN aware. You don't need to assign any of the ports there. It will act as the same broadcast domain, and instead of creating an empty VLAN in PfSense, you can create an empty Linux bridge on Proxmox and pass it on to the gateway host, and it would work the same way. Hope this helps, and let's get back to the studios. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. See you next time.